Yeah, all started.
Okay, right. Good evening, everyone. Let's convene the meeting of the Community Services Committee, 12th of March. I must just say the Town Council record all public meetings held in the Council Chamber. Under new legislation, members of the public are able to record, film and broadcast from a designated area. Please be aware that the meeting may be recorded and might be filmed or broadcast. Thank you. So moving to item 1 on the agenda, apologies.
Yes, Chair. In terms of apologies, we have Councillor Jill Haynes and Councillor Pip Liver is substituting for her tonight. I believe the reason that she's given her apologies is because she's at an event which I think might be an official event as a councillor.
Yeah. Okay.
As deputy mayor. Right,
Yeah.
thank you. And we also have an apology from Councillor Nicholas Chichester Miles, who's training in Lincolnshire.
Okay, thank you. Do we resolve to accept those apologies? Everyone in favour? Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. Has anybody got any declaration of interest that have changed since we last met? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we just move on now to the Chair's report. I've just got a couple of items that I wanted to mention. For note, the skate park refurbishment, as you know, was approved at the full council on the 27th of January. I'd just like to make this point that the Community Service Committee has always been committed to retaining a skate park in Rothamsted Park. When it became apparent the major project was no longer viable because of a shortfall in fundraising and soaring costs. I'm delighted that we have a provisional date for the refurbishment to begin at the end of March. The work should take a couple of days, but of course it is weather permitted. And I do want to add this point because I think it's important. I was somewhat bemused by observations at the full council meeting referring to the skate park. I'd like to reiterate that the previous administration and this administration would never have embarked on a £250,000 project if it didn't believe there was a demand for it. The fact that there was a shortfall in funding and there were soaring costs, the project, as we know, had to be abandoned. But numbers on the skate park are variable because of weather and school holidays. And therefore, that fact does not mean that this is not a well-used facility. And that fact is not in question. I want to reiterate that, and I'm very pleased that a solution has been found. The other point I want to make is that proposals for festive lights, as you know, were approved at the full council meeting. 8 poles will be removed at Church Green, and there'll be an additional investment in street banners and tree decorations. We've had lots of correspondence, as you know, about this. But actually, since that meeting, I've had quite a lot of positive feedback, and I thought that should be recorded. Okay, thank you. Phil, do you have any urgent items?
Chair, there are no urgent items.
Okay. Item 4 on the agenda, public questions.
There are none.
Okay, thank you. If we move to item 5, which are the minutes of the last meeting, the 22nd of January. Has anybody got any observations or comments? Okay, happy for me to approve those. Thank you.
Chair.
Okay, lovely. So now we move on to the officers' reports. And because we've got some speakers here, I'm going to pull up item 6.6 on the park run proposal. And Philip, if you'd like to outline.
Yes, Chair, thank you. So members will have seen the report outlined in the background to this. We understand the value that park run can play, but we do have some concerns about introducing this organised weekly event to Rothamsted Park. The officer concerns remain despite the amended route, We have two members of the public here today, Sally Matthews and Joe Rawlins, who wish to address the committee on this proposal for the park.
Okay. Lovely. So how would you like to do it? Are you wanting to speak individually or come a little bit closer?
We just park ourselves there,
Please, and do sit down and do it there. That's if that's easier. Don't feel
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, we're going to kind of summarise in a couple of minutes,
Okay.
kind of where we are coming from in the part of the front, and then obviously any questions that you've got.
Okay, super.
So I guess the first thing to say on Parkrun is we think that it's an extremely inclusive thing that would be really positive for the community. I think lots of sports can be really quite daunting and they're kind of off-putting, scary for an individual. But if you ever turn up at a Parkrun, you'll see that there's people from age 4 to age literally over 100. There's all genders, there's all abilities, there's all paces, and it's free. So there's no financial barrier. So it really is a way of bringing something sporting to the community, which everyone can do, unlike a lot of other slightly scary sports. It's also very family friendly, everyone can get involved, and great for physical health, mental health, and loneliness. On the physical health, it really kind of speaks for itself in terms of the impact on personal health. GPs even prescribe it because they see it as very positive, and I'd expect it to have a positive impact on the GPs indirectly through people getting more active and healthier. On mental health, has a huge impact on depression and anxiety. It's even proven to improve life satisfaction, even if you just go a couple of times. And then on social connection, it really helps with loneliness. And I personally have experienced this very personally because my dad, when my mum passed away a few years ago, he'd have lots of activities in the week, and then you get to the weekend and there just aren't that many activities for retired people at the weekend. But he started going to Parkrun, age 76. And he actually made friends there and then goes for coffee with them after Parkrun every week. It's made a massive impact to his kind of feeling of isolation at the weekends. And yeah, that's just one example, but it's the kind of story that you hear time and time again coming up Parkrun. And then finally, economy, it's proven to have a very significant positive impact on the economy wherever it is. So as a sort of general thing, it's great. In terms of specifically for Harpenden,
Yeah,
James going to pick up.
We completely understand that there are questions about why Harpenden and specifically Rothamsted Park. And the first thing we'd say is that establishing a park run here, we know aligns with your own objectives as Harpenden Town Council. The vision of Harpenden as a thriving town where people want to work, visit, live. We think having our own park run will align with that. And it also aligns with 3 of your strategic objectives that are set out in your business plan. Improving health and well-being, as we've touched on. I think it goes towards the local economy as well. There will be people, buying coffees and all the rest of it after Parkrun, doing some shopping, and also it goes towards the green credentials. It is actually a very environmentally friendly activity, especially when people are walking or running or jogging there themselves. So within your business plan, we know you've got this initiative to at least consider introducing a park run to Harpenden. And our view, and this is following quite extensive inquiries being made around the local area, our view is that the only viable location in Harpenden is within Rothamsted Park. There just isn't anywhere else. People have looked at this for several years, that if we're going to do it as a community, it's got to be within Rothamsted Park. The reasons for this are set out in the proposal, but ultimately the park is a sufficiently large space and it's there for all the community to use. So as I say, there's an extent to which if we're able to deliver this, we really feel it does have to be within Rothamsted Park. We recognise that we need to, from the park run side, work with and accommodate the other park users, and would want to do that very much hand in hand with all the other stakeholders and those that use the park. Now, more generally, from the perspective of Harpenden residents and other people that might use Parkrun, we think Rothamsted Park is a fantastic location. It's really central. It's easy for lots of our residents to get to without driving. It's also very accessible from the train station, of course. And at the moment, a lot of Harpenden park runners will travel elsewhere on their Saturday mornings, whether it's to St Albans, Dunstable, I go to Luton. It's a 20-minute drive. So Rothamsted Park is a fantastic location from that perspective. We also expect that it will attract new runners from within Harpenden, those that at the moment don't or can't travel to those locations. They maybe don't have a car, can't get out of town for 20 minutes drive each Saturday morning. If Parkrun is approved here, we do expect it to be quite popular with the locals in Harpenden, but we genuinely don't see this as one of those events that's going to be absolutely massive and attract people from very far afield. We'll occasionally get visitors, of course, when you're visiting family and friends and so on. But all around us in Hertfordshire, we do have other park runs. So I think it really is likely to be Harpenden-based residents that attend this park run and contribute to it. The other reason we'd say that is, as a general rule, the most popular park runs are those that are very flat and on tarmacs. People like to go and get very fast times, and that isn't what you get with a course here at Rothamsted Park. We recognise that we need to be very mindful of other park users, and that's clearly a concern that's been raised. We want to work hand in hand with everyone, but Parkrun is also only for a very short period of time. It starts at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, and genuinely most people will be finished by 9:30. I put my hand up. I tend to be about 35 to 40 minutes. I'm a bit slower, but I'm usually towards the tail end of the pack in that respect, with the walkers coming behind me. A lot of people will genuinely be gone by 9:30 on a Saturday morning. We recognise also the concerns about the grass and that there will be an impact on that. I guess it's a park, it's a little bit inevitable, particularly at certain times of year. But Parkrun as an organisation has a huge amount of experience, introducing these park runs and being very mindful, paying careful attention to the environment. So it would be done with as much care and respect, genuinely, as possible. And I guess the final thing we just wanted to say is that, we completely understand this is a significant decision and it needs to be done in a very carefully considered way, mindful of other stakeholders and so on. But Parkrun has been a success across the country in thousands and thousands of other communities like ours. It's genuinely seen as a really popular, positive thing for those communities. Other landowners and councils have been able to support community initiatives setting it up. And by and large, it's a massive success, and we think it would be really positive for Harpenden. So thank you.
Thank you. So, questions, please, councillors. Any questions you'd like to ask?
Oh, well.
Yes.
Good question. With regards to the damage to the grass, I understand you've taken steps to try to avoid the boggier side of things. Is that right? And
Yeah, so this route, so Carl and also Timmy's team very kindly have spent quite a bit of time working with us on in order to avoid the worst parts of the park when it comes to mud. So we've very much worked hand in hand to try to find an optimal route.
right. And also you've had a meeting with the Harpenden Colts
Yes.
to iron out.
Yes. Yeah, so they originally raised some concerns because one of our original routes involved going like around their pitch, and they were just concerned about how close we would get.
Yeah.
So we, again, with the help of Tim and Carl, we've slightly adjusted the route so that now doesn't come with it. It's something like 10 metres away from the football area. And I mean, what they said to us at that meeting was not only that they were supportive, but also, generally they think Parkrun is a great thing. So happy for us to go ahead on that basis.
Right, terrific. Does the run doesn't go anywhere near the cricket ground, does it?
No, that's kind of up
Yeah,
there.
yeah. That's right. No interference in there.
Okay, so on the subject of mud,
Yes.
I thought the Colts people made a couple of very good points about mud, and I'm not sure if this now still applies or not. The muddy area by Orchard Avenue, the entrance to the park.
We won't go near that.
You won't go near there.
No.
And then the top of the Lime Tree Avenue, you go up Rothamsted Park,
Yes.
top of the Lime Tree Avenue, it's very muddy up at the top there,
Yeah, so it's designed on.
going through to Rothamsted research station.
Yeah, so it's designed to turn kind of left before you get to the very, well, for a start, you wouldn't go up to that full part, but also the left turn comes just before the muddy area kicks in. Because again, that was something that we did in conjunction with it.
Very good at making sense of maps and things. I'll have a look at that. Other people ask questions.
Have you done any surveys at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning
Yeah,
when there's been home matches
The,
with the Colts.
the map there is easier.
And other clubs.
As in like gone and counted the people.
Well, just go on and be there and walk the route at 9 o'clock
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
morning.
so I have been to the park at that time. And also my husband's been gone and run round. And we have also done a run, not exactly 9 o'clock, but with a group of over 20 of the Harpenden Arrows, just to sort of check it out. It's inevitable that there will be in a park, you know, some
Yeah.
of the park users, but there's nothing here that is unique to our park. You don't also see in Luton, in St Albans, in Gatebridge. And Parkrun is designed in a way to be very accommodating. So in every briefing that you go to at every Parkrun, and I do lots across the country, you know, the first thing they will say is give way to other park users. You know, and we don't have sole right to use this park. It's not a race, it's a run. So, you know, give way where you need to. So it's very sort of considerate spirit, the way that it's done.
Sorry, Patrick, go.
Yeah, I understand also when you did the
Yeah.
testing of it.
Yeah.
It was after quite a lot of rainfall, wasn't it? as well?
Yeah, so it was just about the shortest day of the year, which is bad planning on my point, because it was sort of beginning to get dark. But it had been raining. It was actually pouring with rain during the run. So it was sort of good for just kind of understanding like worst possible scenarios. And everyone was still remarkably positive
Yeah.
about the experience.
Good used in the loosest sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question was, is it set that it's 9 o'clock or could it be 8:30?
It absolutely has to be 9 o'clock because all around the world it
happens at
happens at
9.
9 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay.
I think 8:30 would be a bit early for people if.
I think strictly, I think it's 8 o'clock in very hot countries like Australia.
I think there's a 7 a.m.
All across the
elevation
world. Yeah.
or something. In Scotland, actually, the whole of Scotland is 9:30. I hadn't
Yes.
noticed, but the whole of England is 9 o'clock. And part of it is also to avoid people trying to chase multiple park runs on the same day if they're close by, which would be an issue for us anyway, but you know.
So any further questions?
I'm just concerned about the mud, because I think if you have a number of people running around the same route a couple of times after a heavy rainfall, which happens all the time, then it's just going to be a mud bath. And if you have a mud bath, you have injuries.
So I agree that that is right to be concerned, but this is happening at parks all around the country and they all manage to run on grass. I think there's kind of a few things. So one is this is avoiding the muddiest areas. The second thing is we've tried to minimise the number of loops. So when you go to some park runs where they literally run around 5 times.
Right.
So by only doing it twice, that obviously optimises things. The other thing that St Albans advised me to do, because I talked to them about how they kind of manage to optimise things, is they will aim to, if one week they sort of go on a, you know, run down here, then another week they might go just slightly to the right by like a metre or two to avoid running over the same part of grass. That's obviously something we'd only do in conjunction with discussion with Carl and Tim, but there are ways to manage it. Their advice was that you only actually see real problems with mud where there's a constraint over where you can run. So like if you have to run through a hedge or a small path, and then that gets really bad. Where it tends to be open, so if you sort of look at these areas that are going across quite open grass, what tends to happen is runners just naturally almost like self-moderate to avoid running on the more muddy bit. I'm not saying they go a long way away from the main route, but it does tend to kind of help the situation.
But I think that's the problem, isn't it? Because I think what happens is it develops mud, so people run round the mud to avoid it. And so therefore the mud patch just gets wider and wider. And I suppose that is my main concern. Like my worry is that if it is very muddy, then people will slip and they will get injuries.
If I may, I mean, I've now done, I think, 171 park runs since I found it 6 years or so ago, and I've done some really muddy runs. I've never seen anybody fall over due to mud, very, very genuinely. I think some people will wear, if it were a muddy course, and I'm not sure that we think this one would be, but people will wear trail shoes or shoes that are slightly better in that environment. But also you tend to get very ginger, you run a bit more gingerly when you're going through that. I've honestly never seen anybody fall over in the mud, very genuinely.
I think just to build on that, if you go to Gadebridge, which can get muddy, it's also extremely hilly. But they still manage to make it work. So I think my view on this is that positive benefits are so worth going after. That the sort of risk to the grass, on balance, means it's something that we as a community should do. And the risk to people's health of being inactive, the risk to their mental health of being depressed, like all these things that we can offset, to me, massively offset any risk of potentially falling over.
Yeah, I mean, I do, you know, it is just the location. I mean, I totally agree with the idea of park run. It's just where, in terms of running, I did 9K on Sunday morning, but I went down the bridle path, which in places gets incredibly muddy, and you do end up tiptoeing around the side. And I nearly went flying, because I just think that's just what happens. You do nearly fall over, and the muddier the path is, I think the path will become wider with the mud, and people will slip. That's mine.
But this is going to be on grass.
But with a constant tread.
Yeah, I know, but you're not going to have a narrow channel. That because you were saying about the bridle path.
Yeah.
Is this the coach lane that you were going to do? Well,
No, so just on the golf course.
Oh, right. Okay. So if you're in a narrow channel, you've got big puddles and mud and stuff. Yes, you're going up the side because it's got hedge there or something like that. But this is going to be on an open space, isn't it?
Yes.
The majority.
Yeah.
So. And I believe also if there are really muddy conditions, because I know the St Albans, the Durham Park, that the Park Run organisation, if the conditions are bad, you have a cancellation.
If it's not safe, you don't want.
Yeah.
And that will happen, occasionally when we've had storms and so on. A lot of the local park runs have cancelled because there's a course check in the morning to make sure that it is safe to run.
I'd just like to say, because I was involved in looking for park run routes, the landowners just weren't going to give access to it, or there was the car parking and other issues. So this really is the last chance saloon for a park run in Harpenden, and as Sally and Joe already said, that the benefits of it are incredible. My own daughter does this, does park runs, and she gets a lot out of it from doing the park runs, but also from volunteering, because she takes a turn every four or five runs to do it. And one of the things that she really likes is doing the tail end, following through people, so that she gets chatting to people that she'd never chat to, at all, and she sees another dimension to life, really. And and being allowing people to volunteer as well, it opens a gateway into people volunteering in general as well. So, and volunteering is pretty good for you as well.
And actually, find lots of the schools, when they're doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award, I think it is in particular, it's a great thing for kids to do several. I mean, I don't know how many they have to do to get their award or whatever, but they'll commit to doing quite a few to build up their hours. And so it offers that as well, rather than them all having to travel out to other areas, which I know they do at the moment.
And Park Run also runs a youth, the junior Park Run, which is run out of KWS. And so it would be nice to have something in Harpenden and for them to graduate from the KWS. So
Can I just ask you about parking and numbers? You've talked about obviously using the railway station, £3.60. That's going to obviously cost people to do that. And you talked about using Rockhampton Research. Have you actually had conversations with them about that? And have you been given an indication of whether that is actually viable?
So I have been talking to them, and they've been positive, but they haven't yet been able to confirm whether we will or not. And I am chasing them, but I just haven't heard back from them yet. So I can't confirm whether it will be or not. It's certainly something we would continue to pursue. But I think as a plan B, the station is a viable option. And the way it works is on the Parkrun website, you encourage people to walk or cycle, share lifts, get a train, but then you'll put where to recommend parking. So we would strongly recommend people use the station, and then every week when we do the briefing at the beginning, again, it's another opportunity to remind people where we're encouraging them to park.
Okay, thank you.
I know you say no one's ever fallen over, but what would be the insurance implication, Phil? If, you know,
I think you've got an answer.
oh God, have you got an answer?
What, the insurance?
Yeah.
Someone fell
Will
over.
people start, you know, break a leg, and will the town council be liable?
I'm not 100% sure, but there must be a simple answer to that because they're doing Parkrun everywhere. I do know that once agreed to, that one goes into then sort of contract negotiations between Parkrun and the landowner, and within that, that would definitely be covered.
From previous conversations with Simon Spears of the Harpenden Arrows, he was looking at the other routes that were explored, and I believe Parkrun has its own insurance that would
Yeah,
qualify.
I'm sure
Because this was
probably the case.
when we were looking at it being on Law's Trust land, that was one of the issues.
And in fact, I think because in France, they currently don't have any Parkruns because they can't resolve the insurance issue. So that must be why.
Okay, has anybody got any?
Yeah, another one. The license, because normally you would have a license to operate in the park. I mean, that the others are commercial organisations, aren't they? So I think that normally with Parkrun being free, you wouldn't, and is this a deal breaker? Is it a problem that Harpenden Town Council would require a licence?
So Chair, I think that the answer to that is that it's quite right that everybody else that carries on some sport or other activity within Rockhampton Park has a licence that has a fee attached to it, with just two exceptions, and those exceptions are schools. So the children are allowed to go in there and we don't charge them. But everything else has a fee attached to the licence.
But I'm right in thinking they will charge.
Yes. Yeah,
So they are commercial businesses, aren't they?
as far as I'm aware, that they
You know, keep fit organisations or whatever it might
yeah.
be.
So there's a rugby group in there.
Yeah,
That meets in there, and they pay a fee for their licence.
yes,
There was an
But-
issue
yeah.
with the rugby that they made quite a bit of mess with mud in one where they play their rugby. Can you remember that?
I believe, Chair, that was not this winter, the winter
Yeah,
before.
that would be right.
And the way that the town council officer, Tim, managed that was by speaking to them and moving them further up the park. But you're quite right, it did, because of
Yeah.
the feet treading the ground,
Yeah.
it did make quite a lot of mud on the grass.
Mhm. And of course, keeping on the subject of money, the town council officers would need to do quite a lot of work, wouldn't they, to assist with this? I think I saw that there would be a cost in officer time.
Yes, Chair. So there would be time involved in producing the licence, then monitoring the licence, monitoring the state of the park, and carrying out any remedial action if any damage was done to the ground.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Right, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Before? No?
No, we
You
just think
saw, yeah,
it
you
would
were
be
hugely
hugely
confident.
positive,
Well, as you know, we really want a park run if we can, if it's feasible and viable and it ticks the right boxes. But as you can see, there are lots and lots of questions. And Patrick's absolutely right. He's been working on it for 18 months and has walked every blade of grass, I think, around trying to find the route, you know, and you know, we just need the park to be 4 times the size, perhaps, and it wouldn't have been such an issue. But thank you for your presentation. And obviously the committee will now consider what's been said.
brilliant.
Okay,
Will you let me know where we get to? Like, how does that?
I think we have the vote now, didn't we?
no, we have to discuss it now.
Oh, right, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, right.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for everyone's
Oh,
time.
sorry, you can stay. Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't realise that you could. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. Okay.
But not interrupt. That's the only.
You won't
All
say
right.
anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, lovely. So thoughts, please.
With regards to the licence issue, I mean, I don't know about the admin. I can't imagine the admin would be that big an issue, but it seems like it's a bit of a syntactical thing that we're saying, oh, you've got to be a licence holder, therefore we're comparing park run with football or cricket or whatever, and it's like, you know, comparing apples with oranges, really, because that, like we pointed out, that they're not paying anything, but yeah, in the case of football and cricket, they have actually bits of infrastructure as well, don't they? They have the goalposts put up and whatever, and they do have reserved pieces of the land, and they will have a pavilion as well, provided for them.
And just say as Phil was explaining, the schools don't pay anything.
Yeah.
So do they have a license? I suppose?
They have a license.
Yeah, they have a license, but they don't pay.
So it's not
So
a
the
deal
precedent
breaker
is there.
in terms of, you know,
Mm.
there isn't a legal, it's not legal or,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so, right. I just wanted to make sure that that point was, made.
David, do you have any thoughts?
Listen to you all and quite happy with everything
What's been said so far?
said. No, yes.
Any thoughts, councillor?
I mean, I suppose I assumed that there was some insurance cover by part of it coming under the umbrella of Park Run. And that was, that's an incorrect assumption, is it?
No, I believe it is.
There is, so there is
There
insurance.
Yeah,
cover.
because it was raised before when we were looking. at
Oh,
it.
okay, right.
Can I just tell you where I'm at with it? Obviously you've engaged with Harpenden Colts, great, and they've come back and it's been quite positive, although obviously there are still a few issues there. But I'm just sort of like a little bit concerned about things like you don't have an agreement on the parking scenario, and you probably know that parking is a massive issue around the park in Avonbury Lane on Saturday morning. So that's one consideration. Also, you haven't engaged with other users like the rugby people who use the park at the same time. The licence has been mentioned, and and other general users. I know this is quite a hard one, really. How do you sort of like engage with other users of the park, because obviously they change every Saturday. So I'm sort of like feeling perhaps there needs to be a little bit more work, and we could perhaps bring it back before we go with it. Do you know what I mean? Because to go with it, we don't have that allocation of parking known. There are question marks over the licence and the insurance and other park users. But that's just where I'm at. But please, everybody else, put your
It did occur to me that we could have a vote and want it to be decided to give them the 6-month trial period, we could attach conditions to it,
Or I don't think, I think if you get your,
like a planning permission, where you get, and the condition would be that they would arrange parking in Rothamsted.
but I think what, is the thing is, if
Would that
you,
be possible?
if you approve the introduction of it, then it's up and running, isn't it? And then if the park, if these issues that I've just pulled out become an issue, it's still ongoing for 6 months.
Mm.
So I'm just wondering whether it should be sort of like put on hold, or maybe to the next committee meeting in June where these things could be explored. Yes.
Well, we-
Oh, did not say no.
That's yours.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that you're allowed to.
Oh, okay, you obviously want to correct me on that.
So if we were to go ahead, it's not a question of starting next week.
No.
It would take several months
Mm.
before we could actually get live. One of the aspects would be we need to like actually physically negotiate the contract between the council and Parkrun. So there's absolutely time to do some of those things and even to put some conditions on. Yes, we go ahead if X, Y, and Z, and even then it's on a trial basis. So, yeah, I'd love to be able to sort of start that process of getting it going with the Parkrun organisation, but we didn't want to do that until we had an agreement in principle.
I mean, I feel that a 6-month trial period seems not unreasonable on the basis that it would take a long time for the contract to be worked through and so on, and then they would have agreement in principle for a 6-month trial. Is that? That's what we.
Well, Phil, what would you advise? I'm a little bit reluctant to agree to something on the basis that the terms of the agreement haven't been agreed.
How long is it anticipated that it would take to come to a conclusion on the contract? I mean, I know that's a how long is a piece of string question.
Yeah, yes, Chair, can I just clarify? You mean to draw up an agreement?
Yeah.
I mean, that could, if the council, if this committee decided to give approval, that wouldn't take very long. It wouldn't take very long to draw up a licence agreement.
But it's a question of Parkrun have an agreement,
Yeah.
need to be sat down and discussed with the council, with Carl, and worked through and then agreed. So it's sort of starting that process.
Okay, I think the town clerk might want to come in here.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add a couple of observations. So just from Sally and Joe's perspective, obviously myself and Phil's officers, we act on the behalf of the council. So what we've been doing so far is trying to deliver the business plan priority, which is to explore this. So clearly we try to be helpful and set out some of the routes, but nonetheless, we've obviously right from the start, we've set out our concerns on it. Just in terms of the licence, I just wanted to come in on one thing. The licence isn't a negotiation. We've got a template set licence that is a kind of a take it or leave it type thing. There isn't a negotiation around liability or things like that. So just kind of wanted to sort of make that clear. We have a set licence. The point about insurance is really important. And personally, I'd want to see a bit more clarity on that, just because we would accept no liability for any accidents within the park. And so if there was any question mark around that, or there wasn't sufficient cover, then that would be a big barrier to the committee being able to approve it. My wider concern, just for committees thinking, is that there are some comparable events that are small scale free events that we do charge for at the moment. And so introducing a free licensed weekly event of a similar number, we would then have to revisit some of the other things that we've already approved. So there will be a knock-on effect, not necessarily to commercial events or commercial activities, but those other licenses that we could be comparable to this. So you may in fact be setting a bit of a precedent that we'd have to go and revisit some of those points. So yeah, just to make some of those observations on there. The only other thing to say is about conditions. That so if you wanted to put something in place with conditions, you'd have to agree what they are now, as opposed to the officers going away and thinking what we think they are. My only kind of concern with that is if there's a condition around ground conditions, we know it's going to be bad. So in many ways, a condition on that is pretty pointless. You know, there's a trade-off there whether we accept it's going to be damaging to the ground and the environment, or we balance that off with the things that are in favour of sort of park runs. The parking, you know, we need to probably be frank, there probably isn't a solution to that. Rothampton Research generally don't allow these things, allow parking for third-party events. From our experience of asking previously, that's not to say you might have more luck with them on this particular one. So again, I don't necessarily think that there is an answer to parking. So I think all of this is a trade-off. If it's approved at any point, it's approving it knowing that there will be downsides. And I think that from my perspective, the biggest downside, that's the biggest unknown from a council perspective, is what the wider current users' view of this will be. Now, it may well be that everybody's really supportive and, like Colts, there's a positive view, you know, with a few tweaks. But actually, from a reputational point of view for a town council, introducing something that then upsets a load of existing users without asking them the question about it in advance would be very unusual for us. So if we were to introduce something like this, ordinarily we'd want to engage the views of users. So I think that's perhaps where you were going, Chair, with your kind of thoughts on the user side of things. Actually, a short period of time, trying to engage the views of the other existing users, so that you've got a complete, comprehensive look at what people think about this prior to taking any decision, could be beneficial. It may show that actually everyone is really up for it. That's great. Or it may show that there's a real minority of people that would be against it, and therefore actually again you might look at that and think it's okay. But equally, it could show a huge swathe of local people that might not be too considerate to it. So again, that's not to say the town council wouldn't want to approve it in that circumstances, but it arms you with more information before you take a decision. And even with a 6-month trial period, once you start something like this, it is then very difficult to stop it if there are issues. And I think whilst there's loads of success stories, there are loads of examples in other areas, particularly small parishes, that have had issues, that have tried to stop it, and that have seen counter campaigns against that has caused a sort of angst locally. So I just thought I'd offer some of those observations to perhaps help. Clearly, park runs got so many benefits to it, but it's whether the council will be willing to trade off those benefits for the negatives.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've got a couple of choices here. Obviously, we could recommend the 6-month trial, but taking into consideration all the things that the town clerk has just sort of talked about, which are not in black and white at this stage, which I have to admit concerns me in terms of agreeing to something when we don't have all the answers. Another way of looking at it is we have committee meeting in June and also in September. Do you think that June is that period would be enough time to see if you could address some of these questions that have been raised this evening? Or do you think September would allow you more time to be able to come and say?
You should specify the questions.
Well, it's the questions that have been raised that I've talked about: engaging with other users, clarifying the situation with parking, clarifying the situation over the licence agreement with the council, clarifying the situation with the insurance, etc. So, I mean, I'm just putting on the table what the options are. Town Clerk, did you want to come in? No, sorry. Okay, just that you appeared. I just so it's that, isn't it? It's the first item of agree to it, but with the with the issues that have been raised, put it off to June, put it off until September. I'm talking about a decision being made. The decision might well be the same, to grant a 6-month trial period. But what I'm saying is that some of these questions that have been raised and obviously causing a little bit of concern, they could possibly be addressed in June or possibly in September. What are your thoughts on that, because I think they would need to be addressed. But this is just where I feel it's going.
So I guess my main concern is getting into a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we can solve the licence question without engaging with Parkrun, so that Parkrun and Carl can talk about the licence that we use.
Yeah.
But Parkrun can't do that for like all places across the country that might say yes. So they needed me to have an agreement in principle before they progressed to the discussion.
Right. Well,
Also, what are the other license holders and what, I should imagine if you put it to a license holder, oh, do you want status quo or do you want this change, which might impact on you? Usually they'll say, oh, the status quo. And parking is, that there should be enough parking anyway. It shouldn't, because there's the station car park, there is a Hootenbury Bowers Way, and there's parking in the street as well. The thing is, people aren't going to want the competition for the parking, but as you say, it's chicken and egg. Just because someone's late to the party doesn't mean that they don't have the same priority for parking as everybody else. So what are the situations? What are the arguments that the other license holders would have that would be material?
Carl, did you want to come in on that? Did you say?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I don't often like disagreeing with councillors, but in terms of Councillor Brosnan's point there, if you take the example of the Colts, they are a user that we've engaged who have been very positive about it, but they've also offered practical issues that there might be solutions to. So this is the suggestion about the other users. There may be other users that may be supportive of it, but may have a slightly different take on what the challenges might be. To take the Colts example, the route around the side of the football pitches. So I don't agree with the idea that if we go to other users, they will automatically be against it. In fact, it's the opposite. I think Colts is a really good example of actually added value to where we've got to today. Because the alternative would have been, you would have brought a map to the committee this evening that would have got automatically rejected. So actually, this is about existing users potentially adding value to get it right as best we can, so that this has a successful long-term future in the park. And the point about licence is, and forgive me, I appreciate that this happens everywhere else, but you're dealing with Harpenden, and we might be different to other places. And if Parkrun have got a certain way of doing things, then fine, but they also need to be flexible to react to local landowners. So we could absolutely, if you were to defer the decision and look for future alternative answers to some questions that we've got, we could happily share with you a template license that you could show to the Parkrun people and say, is this suitable? Or compare it to existing licenses that are in place. But the idea that the town council has to make a decision to suit a arm's length body somewhere else is generally not how we would operate to protect community assets.
I think you want to come back on that.
I was just going to, I don't think that is necessarily what's being suggested. And I think actually it's probably that Parkrun are very used to doing these things and you're very used to doing these things. But what we're saying on the licence side, and I think getting to the very specifics on the insurance, certainly, until Parkrun believe that there is agreement in principle that it's worth them kind of following up on this with you, I'm not sure that we'll be able to bring those sides together. And I don't think for one second that they're actually expecting every council or landowner in the country to bend to their will on this thing. I suspect some of these things might be much easier to solve than we suspect in terms of, the documentation side of it. I just thought I'd.
Thank you.
So can I just clarify, are you saying that in order for Parkrun to give its approval, the town council has to say that they are happy in principle, or are they able to accept that certain questions have to be resolved before?
You're not being asked to agree absolutely today that this would happen. There obviously has to be a process between Harpenden Town Council as a landowner and Parkrun. But I think what they need, it's just that the go ahead to get to the next stage, in a sense, this agreement in principle that you're happy to have those discussions and that there's a realistic possibility of us delivering a park run in Rothamsted Park. But you're not signing anything at the moment. And if you have, if these are genuine concerns after that process has happened and you just can't agree on the license side of it, then that's where you are. But you're not signing a contract with Parkrun today. It's just that they need to know that it's worth starting that process.
Can I, sorry, Tim, can I just clarify with the issue of insurance? Parkrun supply the insurance
Yes.
and the town council doesn't have to supply any insurance.
That is my understanding of how it works, yes, and that is what Patrick has confirmed.
Yeah.
And I know that it does not happen in France at the moment
Mm.
because there is an issue with insurance.
Okay,
So Parkrun therefore is not happening because they can't insure.
right. So if somebody slips and breaks their ankle, they sue
Parkrun,
Parkrun. Okay. And not the town council.
exactly.
I think, Town Clerk, I'm going to have to ask you for some advice on this, because obviously the intricacies of licensing and insurance and numbers and user groups, really how that will impact on us indicating that we're in favour of a 6-month trial period or not. It's whether you would want to do that from a town council point of view. As you said, it's not the way that you would normally go about something like this.
Yeah, Chair, if I could just ask for a bit of clarity actually from Sally and Joe. So do Parkrun expect the landowner to sign one of their agreements? So is there a template agreement that we would expect to sign?
I believe that's how it works, yes, but obviously you can say, no, I'm not signing that.
Yeah.
What I don't know is how many examples they've got across the country of therefore an agreement that's your agreement, and therefore then going, okay, we'll use your agreement. I don't know, but it's certainly you can choose to not sign. So agreeing here doesn't mean that a contract signs and it goes ahead.
Yeah, of course, but obviously this is a public committee and it's making a commitment to do something, and there's issues around that. So actually, I hadn't quite appreciated that we would be expected to sign someone else's agreement. I think had I realised that, and apologies, that perhaps is a question I should have asked much earlier, then I would have asked to see an example of that before we would have even got to this stage, because I wouldn't put something like this in front of committee without understanding what the potential type of document we would sign up to. So with that in mind, my suggested way forward would, I think that the best that I could advise the committee to do is to agree to continue to explore this in Rothamsted Park, subject to understanding what the Parkrun agreement looks like and how that fits with our agreement, plus subject to further engagement with existing users and clarity around parking provision. And I think whether that gives you enough of your in principle resolution, hopefully it does. I'm not sure I could advise the committee to go any further than that. But what that does then naturally mean is it will have to come back to committee in June anyway, in any case, because in order to approve an agreement like this, it would have to come through committee. So whether you think that sort of resolution would give you enough of the in principle to make Parkrun interested for them to release their agreement to us, or we go to Sandridge and get an example of their one and just see what it looks like. I think that's probably, Chair, the best that I could advise this evening to get some clarity. And as I say, I only come at this from the point of view of, if this is approved, I want it to be successful so that it continues for a long period of time, and we don't then retrospectively have to deal with a load of issues that are even harder to deal with once something's started.
Okay. So I think the recommendation is to defer the decision to the council, the meeting of this council, this committee in June, which I believe is, I think, the 26th. So I'm going to ask, read out a recommendation, which is basically to defer the decision to the next meeting of the Community Services Committee, where we will continue to explore the holding of a park run in Rothamsted Park. But this is also subject to us having access to the park run agreement so that the clerk and officers can work their way through that and have a look at that. And also the second point would be that park run or that we have further engagement with other park users. And also if we could get some sort of clarity on the parking possibilities. I know you haven't had confirmation, but that would be brilliant if we had a little bit more information on that, whether that is viable at all. So that's what's in front of us. So it's a little bit wordy, but all those in favour? Okay, thank you.
Is there a form which you would expect to see us engaging with the other users? Because I suppose you've already talked about, you know, do we go up to someone in the park and say,
Yeah, I think it's carrying out your own survey.
I mean, because there's the users and there's those that would use the park and support park run. And I think I have no concerns that we could actually get you an awful lot of people. I'll try not to get them all to email you all the time.
No, but it's just, I suppose what you're looking at there is one, you've got general public, haven't you?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I was asking you about whether you'd actually been there at 9 o'clock at different times of the year, but also maybe the officers can provide sort of like lists of people who do use the park and come out, you know, like maybe gym groups or rugby or whatever it might be, and that will be useful to you.
We make sure that what we did with the in June.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you know exactly what's required. Yeah. Thank you. Carl, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that our comms officer will happily help guide on that as well, if that's useful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to the meeting and talking us through it all, and so good luck with it, with everything. Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so if we continue with the agenda and move to 6.1, which is the forward planner and resolution tracker, which obviously can be found on page 5. Thank you.
Chair, as members all know, this is an item that's on each of the agendas. It sets out the plan for the next year. We also know that it's likely that as we go through the year that other items that pop up may be added to it as well. I'm willing to take any questions, but I don't think I've got any more comments to make on it.
Okay. Any questions or observations from anybody on the forward planner?
No, it's true.
I'm pleased to see the new nature reserve update on progress there. That would be very interesting to hear in June.
Oh, it's the 26th, it's the 18th, actually.
The 18th,
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so the recommendation is the committee is asked to note and approve, subject to any comments or amendments, the forward planner attached to Appendix A. All those in favour? Thank you. And note the resolution tracker attached to Appendix B and approve the removal of those resolutions marked complete. Thank you. So then you move on to agenda item 6.2, budgetary control, page 11. Thank you.
So, Chair, this presents the actual expenditure and income position as of the 31st of January 2025. And for the period from April 2024 to January 2025, the council's net costs show a favourable variance of £44,131 compared to the year-to-date budget. This favourable outcome is primarily due to the short-term surplus in employee costs and slightly higher income from Liddica Car Park, plus several other minor variances.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the budgetary control? No?
No.
Okay, thank you. So the committee is asked to note the report and note the release of the reserves set out in Appendix A. All those in favour? Thank you. Then move to item 6.3, the tree surveys, summer 2025, the appointment of a contractor, page 16.
Thank you, Chair. This committee approved a tender specification for the tree surveys in the January meeting. We received 3 tender submissions for this, and they ranged between £11,800 and £25,500. The lowest price received was £11,862.50, and this was submitted by Maidencroft, who are a company that have done several pieces of work previously for Harpenden Town Council, and committee is asked to approve them as the contractor to complete this survey.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that, on the tender?
You've been quite satisfied with their work, obviously, or you wouldn't be suggesting.
Yes, Chair, they've done various different types of work over the few years that I've been here, and we've been pleased with the outcome.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the committee is asked to approve Maidencroft as the contractor to complete the tree works as defined in the recent tender process for the sum of £11,682.50. All those in favour? Thank you. Right. If we move on to item 6.4, Parva Close basketball court usage. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Page 28.
During November last year, this committee postponed the decision on whether to continue with the plan to expand the Parva Close basketball court by a small amount, and that decision to postpone it, the reason that we were considering not taking it forward was because of the high costs of the quotes that had been received. And so it was postponed by this committee so that some usage research could be carried out. Since November, observations were recorded by Town Council officers on 24 visits to the site. And during that time, no persons were seen to be using the basketball hoop. Quotes for the expansion work were £9,480 and £10,700. Although the report asked committee not to pursue these works due to the disproportionately high costs, committee may also wish to consider the alternative option of deferring the decision further to June, so that continued monitoring can take place during better weather months.
Any thoughts on that, David?
It's in my patch as such, but no, I'd be happier to defer it to June till the better
So
weather.
we can see, really get through.
It's a bit cruel this time of the year for playing basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know last week was nice, but yes, I mean the park's well used. The fact that they don't play basketball, I think, so sad, but it's the state of things really. But no, extend it to June if the officers are happy to pop up there
Any other
and
thoughts?
have a look when they cut the grass.
I'd only make the point, having quickly looked at diary on my phone, that 18th of the 11th was Monday morning, 20th of the 11th was Wednesday morning. So who do we anticipate would be using it during a weekday?
Well, I think this is a bit like the skate park in terms of you're going to get highs and lows, weather, holidays, etc. Will affect it. I mean, there will be periods where it might be very, very busy, and the skate park I'm talking about, and periods where it might be less busy. And I think to some extent that will be the case with, maybe the case with Parva Close. So I think it's probably quite pragmatic to actually extend this over the summer period. And so that we can really just see in the light of our, and it's very important to me that we have accessibility for people who don't belong to some of the clubs, where the membership fees are quite steep. And if they like basketball, they can just go out there. And if there is a demand for that, then obviously it will be great to invest in it. But if there isn't, let's just make sure that we've got the data to support that. Agreed?
Similar
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
Rome.
So the council is being the committee, I keep saying council, sorry, the committee is being asked to defer this decision on the basketball court at Parva Close until the next meeting of CSC in June. All those in favour?
Yep.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay, let's move on to item 6.5, which is the Harpenden Green Loop, which is on page 32. And I think this is a very exciting project that we're really looking forward to it being up and running.
Is it running?
Thank you, Chair. This came before this committee in November 2024. We've come to the conclusion that it's likely that residents, particularly those that belong to clubs such as Ramblers, will know the local routes that make up the Green Loop very, very well. And we'd welcome their feedback. So we would be looking to carry out a short community engagement survey to gain people's views on whether the proposed route for the Green Loop is the best that it can be and whether there's any potential issues with it. So based on that, if committee are in agreement, we're requesting committee to approve the Green Loop as proposed, subject to the feedback received through the survey, which may result in slight amendments being made to the route.
So any comments, anybody on the loop?
When you talk about the Ramblers, would you be approaching the organisers of the Ramblers or putting the survey on the website and leaving it for individual members to respond?
I think we'd be doing both, Chair.
Both.
Any other comments about it?
Yes. Is this I looked at this with my husband and we found the map. Is this the design that would be used? I'm talking about design rather than the actual route. The way it shows all the streets and the houses, it's quite dark. It's not that easy to follow, I think.
So, Chair, if the committee thinks
you
that
think?
if you think that the graphic detail is not the best it could be to make it user friendly, then we could look at changing.
Just simplify it a bit. It just, what do other people do?
Yeah, it could be, that's clear. Carl, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just to set out that the map version you've got in front of you sets out what the loop looks like. The comms and the marketing around it, once it's approved, it will look much more simplified than that, and it will be without kind of branding. So yeah, so I wouldn't expect, you know, the signs and the posters for it to look in that detail. It will be simplified. I would imagine it would look something along the lines of the sort of the nature trails on the common, if you can visualize some of those that we've brought to committee in the past. So yeah, this is set out in a way to show you what the loop looks like. We will use these kind of maps, but there'll be much more user-friendly ones that will be sort of designed in a more creative way.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good.
Thank you.
You can actually get up into Hartwood as well.
Yeah, can you? Okay.
Yeah. If you go down, Mud Lane, then you turn right at the field, then you're up to Airs End Lane, then you're into Hartwood as well.
Okay.
Should you make it wanting to?
So-
Extra loop. Yeah.
Yes. So any other observations, David or Patrick? Are you happy?
No,
No diversion.
Yeah.
with a better map, I'm happy with the.
So the committee is asked to approve the current proposed Harpenden Green Loop route, subject to the findings of the short community survey, which will go online and be people contacted. All those in favour? Thank you. So we then move to item 7, exempt business. Is there any exempt business, Philip?
There is none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, before we finish, I just wanted to record our thanks to Councillor Brosnan, to Patrick, for all the work that he's actually done on the park run. I know that since he started on the council, it's literally been almost his personal project, and he's met with loads of people. He's walked lots of miles and looked at lots of routes and engaged with people. And I really would like that to be recorded. Our thanks to him for all the effort that he's put into trying to explore this project on behalf of the
Thank you.
council. And you've done a great job. Being there to all these people who are well known, you need to take off running.
It's good to join us if it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Philip, for doing it. So I think that concludes the meeting for this evening. The next meeting of this committee will be the 18th of June, and the meeting closed, not one of my better ones, I'm afraid, 8:40. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.